My mother gave birth to me out of wedlock and was disowned by her parents, forcing her to leave home. She realized that by using systems like food stamp, TANF, she could manage to get by, even though we were poor, so she chose not to work. Our neighbors were a couple with a son who was bedridden from birth, unable to walk or speak well due to his illness. Since the neighbor lady stayed at home to care for her son, my mother, seeing an opportunity, would leave me, still a young child, with them for about 2 hours while she went gambling. Of course, she never said she was going out to gamble. She always came up with some reason, like she had a doctor's appointment or had to go to the city office. Sometimes she left me there for over 4 hours, and when the neighbor lady expressed concern, my mother simply stopped leaving me there, saying, "It's fine." After that, I started staying home alone. I didn't go to kindergarten, so I had no friends and no one to talk to. When I went to the park alone, I always saw the children who had brought their mothers, and that made me feel jealous. The neighbor lady noticed my circumstances and approached me in the park and took me to her home. For me, who only eats instant foods or some breads from the supermarket, the foods she made were warm and delicious. She listened kindly to my stories, which made me very happy. Her son, John, was 5 years older than me.
"John, our little friend Adam is here. Isn't that nice?"
She called out, and John waved his hands to express his joy. That somehow made me happy too.
"John has no friends. If you had any time, would you come and play again?"
I nodded vigorously to her words. As a kid, I was happy. It was not because she pitied my poverty and sympathized with me, but because she invited me as a friend of her son. And so, I started visiting their house from time to time, enjoying their meals and talking to John. When I started elementary school, I finally started going to school for the first time in my life. My classmates had already learned to read and write, and could do calculations, as they had gone to preschool or kindergarten. Compared to them, I knew nothing and had to start learning from scratch. I was teased for being stupid and felt sad. I was sad and depressed, thinking about why I was different from everyone else. Regardless of my protest scores or the teacher's comments that I needed more education at home, my mother continued gambling every day. It was more than just a hobby, and it had become an addiction. It was obvious even to everyone. Even when we were shopping together, she would stop as soon as she saw something related to gambling. She would walk in a daze towards it, look at it, and tells me to go home, then she goes gambling. Whenever she saw numbers while shopping, she would remember gambling and become restless. She would hand me the shopping bag and say, "I'll be back later," then head off to play. Even when watching TV at home, if a gambling commercial came on, she would react and say, "I'll be back in a bit," then leave. I was scared of my mother because she seemed to be controlled by something. That night, I woke up to the sound of crackling flames, smoke, and a strange smell. Fire was raging. "It's on fire." Looking around, my mother was nowhere to be found. It seemed that she had gone out to play while I was sleeping. My heart was pounding. Fear of death approaching made my entire body shake. At that moment, the face that came to mind was not my mother's, but the neighbor lady's. I mustered up the courage to run out of the house and rang the doorbell of the neighbor's house and pounded on the door.
"What's the matter, this late at night?"
John's father, who opened the door, wasn't angry but looked worriedly at my face. "Sir, fire. Our house is on fire." I couldn't explain well because I was panicked, but he just nodded at me, instructed me to wait there, and headed to my house. The lady who had gotten up held me tightly with a worried expression on her face.
"It's on fire. Call 911. We need to evacuate."
He came back quickly, shouted out, and I helped the lady put John in his wheelchair and we ran out of the house. Concerned that the elevator might stop, he carried John on his back down the stairs, while the lady and I carried the folded wheelchair from behind. Fire trucks arrived within 5 minutes and started firefighting immediately. I watched in disbelief as flames billowed from my house. Suddenly, a shrill yell echoed from behind me.
Adam, what the hell have you done?
My mother, who had come back from gambling, was so flustered and ran up to me.
Don't you have any idea how much this fire is going to cost us in damages? Don't mess around.
She grabbed me by the collar, hysterically yelling and shaking me violently. Then her hand was brushed off.
Mrs. Summers, you're the one who should be blamed here. Leaving your son alone late at night. What were you even doing? Instead of blaming your son, you should be thankful he's safe.
John's father stood in front of me, vehemently condemning my mother.
I don't need any advice from you.
My mother glared at him, her face twisted in frustration. Further investigation revealed that my mother had left an electric heater on when she left the house, which had set a nearby blanket on fire. Thankfully, due to a quick response, only our house was affected by the fire. It was grateful for small mercies. Even though my mother delivered a parting shot like that, she had nowhere else to go, so we both ended up staying at the neighbor's house for a while. One day, when I came home from elementary school, my mother was sitting across from a stranger, talking. "Hey, who's that?" John's mother gave me an uncomfortable look and told me it was a person from CPS. But at that time, I didn't know what that meant or implied.
We've determined that you lack the ability to raise your son properly, so we will be taking him into our care and placing him in an orphanage.
I heard their words and froze. I didn't fully understand the complexities of the situation, but I knew I was about to be separated from my mother and live somewhere far away.
Initially, I didn't plan to have a kid. Just take him.
I felt a lump in my throat and my eyes stinging at my mother's muttered words. I knew my mother didn't like me, but I believed that there should be some bond between us because we shared the same blood. I just wanted to believe. Then suddenly, John's mother broke in.
Are you even a mother?
It was the first time I had seen her showing such a fierce and emotional.
What? I just told the truth. I bet you're envious of me for having a healthy child, while yours is disabled. But to me, he's just a burden. If it weren't for him, I would be so much freer.
My mother's words were cut off by John's mother's resounding slap.
I will raise Adam. I won't even let him go to an orphanage. My husband and I will raise him with love.
The CPS staff, who was taken aback, intervened.
If you wish to adopt him officially, please let us know. We can guide you through the process.
After that, when John's father came home, we all sat down for a serious discussion, and it was decided that I would be adopted by them. The day my mother left the house, without a glance in my direction, she walked out the front door. My mother was asked to pay $5,000 for the fire damages, but she said she had no money, so John's father stepped in and paid for her. But everyone knew that she would never repay that money.
I'm sorry, Adam, that we had to take you away from your mother.
She apologized with a regretful face, so I shook my head. If it wasn't for you two, I might not be alive right now. I'm happy that you're my family. Hearing this, John's father wiped away tears and knelt down to my level.
Right, we're already a family. You have nothing to worry about.
Despite not moving or changing schools, news that I had been adopted by my neighbors spread quickly. Not only that, but rumors about my mother's gambling addiction and the fact that they had a disabled child also spread, and I became a target of ridicule and bullying. But I didn't let it get to me. I was grateful to John's mother and father, who had given me clean clothes, a safe home, and a family who treated me with love, all of which were a stark contrast to my previous life. I studied hard to make them proud, found friends who accepted me, and started to enjoy school. I began to call them Dad, Mom, and Brother, because I wanted to be a real family. After my dad and mom expressed their surprise and their eyes grew wide, they hugged me joyfully and called me Adam. This was the first time someone had held me so tightly and warmly like this. I had daily conversations with my older brother about school, friends, games. I often showed him a book of ocean photographs because he was thrilled when I showed him photos of the sea I took before. My brother especially loved a photo of a particular beach in California, and he would become excited and convey his joy by moving his arms and legs every time he saw it. "I'll take you to this beach someday," I told him. My words excited him even more, and he started flapping his arms and legs, which earned a reprimand from our mother. As I started to take care of my brother and transport him to the hospital, I began to dream of working at a facility for the disabled. It's a harsh reality to face, but I know our parents will pass away someday. If that happened and I was at home taking care of my brother, I wouldn't be able to support him enough. So, I thought it would be best to work at a facility for the disabled and have my brother looked after there. However, my brother passed away the year I started high school. Our parents had been told at his birth that he would not be alive until 20, so they were somewhat prepared. But that didn't lessen the pain of loss. Seeing our mother sit still in my brother's room, our father repeatedly looking through my brother's photo album, I understood how deeply they were grieving his loss. I felt a profound regret that I hadn't been able to do anything for my parents or my brother. After that, I graduated from a technical school specializing in care and started working at a facility for the disabled. Even after my brother's death, my desire to reduce the burden on families with disabilities and make their lives a little easier hadn't changed. The month after I received my first paycheck, I took my parents to California. That was the beach I had promised to take my brother to someday. An emerald green sea stretched out on both sides of the long bridge that seemed to continue forever. Standing in front of the view from the beach, I held up a portrait of my brother. "We've come to the beach you wanted to visit, big bro," I said. My mom let out a sob and my dad choked up. "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. I couldn't fulfill my brother's dream while he was alive. I couldn't repay my debt to you guys." As I apologized through my tears, my mom took my hand.
That's not true, Adam. Thanks to you, our son was able to fulfill many dreams.
As I looked at them in confusion, my dad continued.
John couldn't go to school for the disabled and didn't know what school was like. We felt sorry for John and couldn't talk about school. When we heard you were talking to John about school, we realized we were wrong.
My father explained how my brother could imagine himself going to school, making friends, studying, and enjoying student life through my stories.
I'm sure he's in heaven right now, flapping his arms and legs with joy, knowing that you've remembered and brought him here.
The image of my brother doing just that brought a smile to my face.
Thank you for becoming his brother. Thank you for becoming our son. Adam, you are also making our dream come true. The dream of seeing our son grow up.
My dad nodded in agreement with my mom's words.
Ever since we adopted you, no, from the moment we met you, Adam, you've been our savior.
My dad added. I couldn't stop the tears. Blood ties didn't matter. These people who had raised me with such love were my true parents and family. 5 years later, I married a woman I worked with at the same facility, and we had a daughter.
I never imagined I'd get to see my son get married, let alone hold a grandchild. I'm so happy.
My wife, Catherine, is listening to my mom's words with a smile. She had been left at an infant home after her birth and raised in an orphanage, so she didn't know her biological parents. After hearing about her background, my parents told her, "From now on, think of us as your real parents." My wife nodded, tears streaming down her face. This scene reminded me of when I was adopted. Today, we came to visit my brother's grave. "Big bro, this is your niece, Hannah. You've got a niece now," I told him. Seeing my brother's grave, Hannah giggled with delight. I am incredibly grateful to have met my parents and brother, who accepted me and gave me a place to belong. Along with my new family, my wife and daughter, I vowed to repay my parents not only for what I owe them but also for what I couldn't give back to my brother.